Good education is the greatest wealth of mankind. Money's necessary for normal functioning in today's world, but its presence should not overwhelm the world. Having significant financial resources does not make a person better, but on the contrary. Fortune often spoils people because it makes them selfish, egotistic, pretentious, and makes them forget what respect for another man is. A rich woman tried to humiliate a waitress in an upscale restaurant. Then the manager came in and the rich woman got what she deserved. Money allows you to buy a lot of valuable and luxury goods or services, but you cannot buy the most important things or positive qualities. You can have a sum of $0 and remain a gerbil and a chameleon, that is, be a very poor man. Rich people like to emphasize their status by going to exclusive places, such as expensive restaurants. In love for luxury and service at the highest level, there's nothing wrong, unless their acquisition does harm other people. Varia kept looking at her sick mother, Varvana Vasilyevna, and regrets about her condition. She's been sleeping in bed for 6 months, and her medicine is very expensive. This is why the salary that she earns from her work as a nanny is not sufficient for her to buy medicine for her and spend on herself and on her. She lives alone with her mother after her father passed away, and since her mother does not have a pension, Varia was forced to spend it. Her mother sacrificed everything for her when her health was fine, but when she fell ill and stopped working, she was unable to earn money and kept regretting the same all the time. The young woman went out of the house and remained looking for a second job that would provide her with more money. She works in the nursery until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and she can work a second job until late at night. When Varia passed by in front of a fancy restaurant in the city, she noticed that they were hanging an advertisement at the door asking for a dishwasher. Then the young woman immediately entered and asked Christina, who works at the reception, to meet the supervisor of the restaurant. She met the young woman, Olga Viktorovna, who restaurant supervisor, and told her that she'd come to work and was ready to work from 2 p.m. until late at night. The woman was surprised that a beautiful and intelligent young woman like Varia applied for a job as a mail carrier in a restaurant. This was more surprised when she learned that she's educated and has a university degree. But she realized that these circumstances made it necessary for her to search for a job because she's most likely in need of money. At first, Olga hesitated to accept the young woman, but when Varia told her that her mother was sick and desperately needed a second job in order to buy her medicine, the restaurant supervisor affected and accepted her on the job. Then she asked her to start working at the next time. The young woman was very happy because she got the job, returned home, and told her mother that they would not think about medication again because she got a second job. Then her mother embraced her and cried, and then told her that she's proud of her. Varia showed great activity and vitality at work, and this is what attracted Olga, who was astonished by the young woman, because the latter does her work never late, so she won everyone's respect. One day, while Varia was washing the dishes inside the restaurant's kitchen, she heard the sound of a man screaming at the waitress, throwing plates on the floor, and then starting to scold her. Then the young woman immediately went to see what was happening. She saw the waitress standing near the man in expensive formal clothes and shivering, while the man shouted and insulted her. The man, who appears to be rich, was upset that the waitress was late to bring him food, and that one of the dishes was not among the ones he ordered. This is why he did not tolerate the waitress, although she asked him for his excuse, and promised him that she would bring what he requested at the time. No one intervened to defend the waitress, because everyone was afraid of the rich man. But Varia was very upset, and she wanted to teach him a lesson. Varia approached the man and described him as a bossy. Then she asked him who believed himself, so that he would treat people in that way. Meanwhile, the owner of the restaurant, Vasily Petrovich, intervened and asked the millionaire man, Arkady Pavlovich, to calm down and not listen to that young woman. But the latter was very bothered by Varia's words, who she spoke to him that way. Then the young woman returned to her workplace and arrived to wash the dishes. Meanwhile, Arkady mocked Varia, wondering how a dishwasher could speak to him in this way, as even the owner of the restaurant is afraid of him and always tries to please him. The millionaire told the young woman that he was one of the richest men in the city, and that he would pay the owner of the restaurant to fire her. But Varia was not showed any reaction, working without looking at him. Meanwhile, Vasily approached Varia and asked her to shut up immediately, and told her that it would be her last day at work. Then approached the millionaire man and tried to calm him down. However, the young woman told Arkady that he could not buy everyone with money, and that there are people who are not fooled with money, even though they're poor. Meanwhile, the man took notes of cash from his pocket and threw them at the young woman, and told her that he could buy them, and asked her to take off her clothes and he would give her more money. The young woman stood up and took that money and told him that she really needed the money, and that she could buy, and boldly offered to come to her house and buy it there. Then she asked him to write her address on paper. The man was astonished at the boldness of the young woman and took a piece of paper from his pocket and asked her to write the address for him. Then she wrote it. Varya, smiling, complete her work amid everyone's amazement. The man returned to his table and asked the owner of the restaurant to bring him food because he was in a hurry. Well, Varya finished her work and started leaving the restaurant. Meanwhile, Christina approached her and told her that she had learned from one of the man's neighbors, who is a constant employee of the restaurant she works at, that Arkady is a man who lives alone, and that he does not like women, so he warned her not to sleep with him. But Varya didn't care about the words. Christina added that the millionaire man had a first wife and she died of a serious illness, and a year later his only son died after he was involved in a traffic accident with his luxury car. Then Arkady married Miss Medina and lived with her for 1 year, but he separated from her when he noticed that she did not take care of him and just wanted to enjoy his money. So he decided not to marry again, and he hated women. Days passed and Varya thought the rich man would not come to her house. But one day when the young woman was preparing food for her and her mother after returning from work in the restaurant, she heard a knock on the door. When she opened it, she found Arkady waiting for her at the door, when she was astonished and kept looking at him, then smiled and invited him to enter. When the man entered the house, he found everything in it was old and he did not like it. Varya came with him to a hotel to spend the night there, but the young woman refused that and told him that the reason that he made their invite to her home, it's not for greed for his money, but her mother's illness, and her, despite need for money, will not accept his money, and he's satisfied with the situation in which she lives. When Arkady found out that the young woman had a sick mother, who went into her room, and there he found her lying on the bed and breathing with difficulty. When the woman turned towards the man, she called him by the name Arkady and asked him to sit down because she'd not seen him for years. Then the man approached and kissed her and called her Aunt Varvara and immediately kissed her on the head. When the young woman asked her mother if she knew the man, she told him that she used to come to her house with his father because his father was a friend of her husband. And he enjoyed a lot of sweets that I prepared specially for him. And he liked the food that he prepared and would not miss the opportunity to visit her home, to eat her food and sit down to talk to her. Arkady asked Varvara if the young woman was the same little girl he used to find at home when he came to visit her 15 years ago. When the woman confirmed that she was the same and that she's now grown up and is 25 years old. The man apologized to Varvara and offered Varvara to take care of her because he did not forget the favor that she had given her father and her husband, and he admitted to her that he wished he would meet her one day and return the favor to her. With the passage of time, Arkady became attached to Varya and proposed to her, and she moved to live with him in his big house along with her mother. And she asked him to stop working because he now takes care of all the expenses and belonged to her and her mother. In the end, Varya married Arkady, and her life and that of the mother are completely transformed.